As business owners, stress can wreak havoc on our health, both mentally and physically. Whether we admit it or not, stress can significantly impact our performance and our productivity. That's why today we're going to dig into, with our special guest, how to successfully manage stress as an entrepreneur. Hi, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing, where we believe marketing shouldn't be difficult. All you need is the right plan. I am super excited to have with me today Professor Pete Alexander from Professor Pete's Stress Management Tools. Pete, welcome and thanks for taking the time.
Tim, thank you so much for having me on the show, and I really appreciate your listeners tuning in as well.
Absolutely. Well, and it's nice to switch seats because I was on your podcast, I don't know, a month or two ago. So thank you for coming on and spending some time with us today.
Oh, it's pleasure's all mine.
Awesome. So we're going to get started with some rapid fire questions just to help us get to know you a little bit better. You ready to rock this?
Let's do it.
Okay. When you're not working, how do you like to spend your time?
Probably hiking. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and it's got fantastic hiking trails. And when it's raining, which it does a lot up here, it's watching movies with my wife.
Awesome. What's your hidden talent?
I have a mental database of hundreds of jokes that I can bring into a conversation based on a certain keyword that I hear. So it's funny because people say, "Oh, can you just tell me a joke? Tell me a joke," and that's not funny. But if I hear a particular keyword and I think, this is going to be a good joke."
Okay, I love it. I can honestly say I've never heard anybody give that same hidden talent. So
hey, I'm unique.
Yes, very unique. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
That would be kind. That's why I have that background.
Okay, I love it.
There's too much negativity in the world, and even a simple random act of kindness like sending a message to someone, taking a minute before you start your day, a text, an email, just saying, "Hey, I wanted to thank you for something you did for me at work," or I'm just thinking of you. That has a huge, huge benefit to the person who's receiving it. And in most cases, that person will respond back, and that gives you a jolt of positivity as well.
I love it. And I don't want to go too far down a sidetrack here, but I'm going to share a story because I totally agree with you on this. When this was probably 5 to 6 years ago, our girls were 4 or 5-ish at the time. My wife was in Costco walking them around, and this guy came up to her and just said, "Oh, your beautiful girls, they grow up so fast." And my wife said, "How old are yours?" And he was like, 23 and 25. And it seems like yesterday they were that age. So, don't blink, don't miss it, live in the moment. And such a seemingly trivial conversation, my wife brings that up all the time because it's just stuck in her head. And she was like, "Yeah, gosh, I'm so thankful that he took the time to stop and communicate that to me."
It's so good. And having a parent of a 26, a 24, and a 20-year-old, I can tell you that I wholeheartely agree with that.
Yeah. So even holding the door for somebody can make a huge difference, and you'll never even know it.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that there's been times where I'm holding the door, and then a whole bunch of people just start walking in, and most of them don't even thank you. And it's like, okay, don't do it for the thanks. Do it because you want to do it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Awesome. So be kind, people. What's one thing about you that surprises people?
Well, this is one that I'm still hunting for. Whoever else can lay claim to this. So I have a 100% blood sibling, my sister, my older sister, and she is from a different marriage because my parents married, had my sister, got divorced. My dad remarried, got divorced. Then my mom and dad got married again, had me, got divorced, and then they continued to have other marriages. So my parents, all told, had oh God, what was it? Uh, eight. Was it? No, 9 marriages, 7 divorces, a couple widowings. So
Oh my God.
so, but my sister and I, 100% blood siblings, but from 2 different marriages.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I've never talked to anybody that can stake claim to that either. So,
Hey, I'm 2 for 2 now.
it's awesome. Well, it's not awesome that your parents had to go through so many divorces and then back, and I can't even imagine. So, what does success mean to you?
For me, it's making a positive difference in others, whether that is working with them directly, whether it's having them on my podcast and helping them promote themselves, whether it's making that be kind and just making that one positive impression on them. Whatever it is, it's just it's at the end of the day for me. I've always imagined that I'm going to be cremated, so I'm not going to have a tombstone. But if I had a tombstone, it would be he made a positive difference.
Yeah, cool. I love it. Now, okay. So, since you said you're going to be cremated, where do you know where you want your ashes spread?
Yeah, there right now my choice would be there's a beautiful, huge lake called Lake Crescent. That's about an hour and a half drive from me, from where I live. That's where I would have my ashes
Okay.
spread.
Cool. Where's your happy place? Outside of Lake Crescent.
Outside of Lake Crescent, because there's beautiful mountains around, and so as I said, I'm a hiker, and so basically the top of a peaceful mountain, and so as you can see here,
okay,
the mountains are my happy place.
Damn, man. The more I talk to you, the more I realize we have all kinds of similarities.
Oh yeah, living in Colorado, I can only imagine you get to do those 14,000 peaks if you really want to hike a high place.
Yeah, that's mountains are my happy place. My only challenge is my wife's happy place is the beach. So I got a lot of work to do here.
You know what? You and I are a lot more alike than you think, because the same thing with my wife. She says, let's go to the beach. And if there's any kind of hike that has some climbing in it, she says, yeah, go ahead, have fun.
What qualities do you value in people with whom you spend time?
Humor, obviously, you've probably got a sense of that already.
Yes.
That's a huge one for me. And another one is reliability. If they say they're going to do something, do it. So the reliability / dependability, and being present in a conversation. One thing that really is something that irks me is when the phone takes precedence over, or takes priority over, the person that's sitting right in front of you. That's just something that never is something I like.
Pete, thanks for sharing. I learned all kinds of things about you. Tell us a little bit more before we get into talking about stress management. Tell us a little bit more about your background and how you're helping people now. I know you were a corporate marketer for a long time. How the heck did you get into stress relief? And
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a different thing. So I probably, as we were talking about all the different divorces and stuff, you can imagine that stress and I have had a long history together. And it wasn't until 2008 when it finally started bubbling up as something that that was affecting me physically and mentally. And, if you think about, all of us can probably appreciate a time in our life when we were both mentally and emotionally overwhelmed. And a big time for that for me was back in 2008. My dad was dying, and he needed all of his affairs to be taken care of. My mom separately was having major surgery, and her insurance didn't cover much in the physical therapy. And so she needed care herself. I was running a business that had 20 employees that needed my attention. I had my kids that were small at that time and needed my attention. And oh yeah, by the way, my marriage was heading for a divorce. So needless to say, there was a lot
That's it.
on my. Oh yeah, that's all. That's all that was on my shoulders. And all of a sudden, boom. Right before I get diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes, I lost 30 pounds in 30 days. And at first I thought, wow, this is fantastic. I'm in my mid 40s. I haven't lost weight easily for, so long. And all of a sudden the weight was just coming off. I'm thinking, this is great. I'm eating whatever the heck I want. I'm not doing any different exercise than I was doing before. But after that 30th pound came off, I thought, I better check this out. And sure enough, stress-induced diabetes. The problem though is that I was too busy with what I had going on, and so I didn't listen to my body about what stress was doing to it. And so what ended up happening was I kept burning the candle at both ends for another 10 years until I ended up in the emergency room with a severe case of diabetic ketoacidosis. And for those listeners who may not know what that is, in layman's terms, my body was eating itself alive because of my stress. And the doctors said that had my wife not brought me in to the hospital at that time, I was about an hour or so away from being comatose. And so then I spent several days in ICU. And on my second day in ICU, I get a text at about 6 a.m. from my boss at the time. And my boss says, you have a webinar you need to run at 8 o'clock. What are you going to do about it? And, what
Oh
a
my
surprise.
God. Are you
I'm not kidding.
serious?
I'm not kidding you. And of course, she knew that I was in the hospital. And so first of all, I did not have my work laptop with me. Surprise, surprise, in the ICU. I had my phone. And I started trying to reschedule the webinar, right? And so when I was admitted into the hospital, my blood glucose numbers were so high that the medical grade glucometers could not read it. It just said high. And so at this point, my numbers had come down into more reasonable levels. But as soon as I started trying to reschedule this webinar, they were checking my blood every half an hour to an hour, and the nurse on call at that point, she comes over, she checks my blood, and she can see that my numbers just did a 90-degree turn, and they were skyrocketing again. And she says, a matter of factly, she just says, you realize that's what put you in, pointing at my phone, that's what put you in this hospital bed in the first place. And that was the epiphany moment that I needed. It was a complete stranger who just a matter of factly says to me that you are trading your health for your career. And that is a very bad trade. So
yeah. Well, and she cared enough to say something about it too.
Exactly.
Right?
And so, I basically spent the rest of that day really thinking about it, what I was doing. And then I got out the next day from the hospital, and the day after that I resigned, and I started, I started just applying a whole bunch of different stress relief tools and techniques to try and get my health back.
Yeah.
And the rest is, is history.
That's a heck of a story, Pete. Yeah, gosh. And Jesus, people, if you have employees that are going through that, read the back of Pete's background here. If you're watching this, if you're listening, it says be kind. Have some empathy.
There you
My
go.
God, that is, how out of touch can one person be? That is crazy.
It is. It is. But you know what? That's the problem is that there's a lot of managers out there that are micromanagers, and they are micromanagers because they have a problem trusting their people.
Yeah.
And if they don't trust their people, they feel like they have to micromanage instead of saying, okay, you know what? And this was a new manager. She had just come to the company literally 2 months previously, and she was trying to prove herself, etc. So I get that. Um, but you should come from the basis of trusting your people until you can't, instead of don't trust your people until they go through all these different hoops and slowly gain your trust.
Yeah.
That's you're going to lose your people if you do that.
Yeah. So your story kind of led into this first topic we were going to talk about, which is really what's the worst thing that can happen if you don't deal with your stress effectively. I think you pointed out here, the mind-body connection is a real thing, and it's amazing how strong it is. But do you have anything to add to that? I mean, obviously for you, it put you in the hospital. And you almost died. You could have died from it.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to add to this topic?
Yeah, so my story's one. Let me tell you about my friend Ken. Ken and we met in high school. We were best friends there. After high school, we supported each other first as best men at each other's weddings. We supported each other as proud fathers. And then you fast forward 30 years. Ken was struggling in both his personal and professional life, and he too ended up in the emergency room. But in his case, it was with intestinal cancer. And the doctors had to remove over 2/3 of his intestines, and then he had to undergo a very, very hard chemotherapy regimen. And so he would have chemotherapy for 3 weeks, and then he'd have a week off. And so when he'd have his week off, we'd either talk on the phone or, in person. And every conversation we had, Ken would tell me he was absolutely convinced that stress caused his cancer. And 2 weeks before his 49th birthday, Ken passed away because of his disease.
Yeah.
And stress got the best of him. So, I'm lucky because I'm still alive. I realized after I went through physical burnout that stress is a real thing. But some people don't. They don't get that opportunity. And so I really, really emphasize to people there, there's good stress and there's bad stress. Good stress is something that it's okay for us to have because it's a term called eustress, EUSTRESS. That is the kind of stress that helps us get things done when we're working on stuff that we're passionate about, we're excited about. That's the kind of stress that's totally fine. What we really want to avoid is the negative stress that usually comes in two different flavors. Either one, ruminating about something in the past, either something that we're guilty about either doing or not doing. The problem is things in the past we can't do anything about.
Yeah.
So why spend so much energy letting it churn negatively inside of you? And the other negative stress that we should try and avoid is the anxiety about something in the future that may or may not happen. The problem is when we really worry about something in our future that is going to potentially happen, but not necessarily happen, chances are what's going to happen if we keep on worrying about an exact negative outcome, chances are we are going to manifest that negative outcome. But instead, if we can just be in the present, if we can remove that anxiety about the future and the rumination about the past, all other stress, it will not negatively affect us. But those two, those will. And unfortunately, too many of us focus on that.
Yeah. It seems like those two are really related also because we're focusing on things that we can't control, whether
Correct.
it's in the past, I can't change it, I can't control it. In the future, well, I can't control that either. The one thing that always stuck with me, and I can't remember where I heard it, it was a quote about, worrying about things in the future. And it's like, look, most of the things that we worry about happening in the future never actually happen. So
Mhm.
why are we worrying about them? It's like, deal with it when it comes up, but don't worry about it.
Yeah, and it's a really good point that you talk about what we can and can't control. It's one of my favorite techniques that I recommend to people because as humans, we will stress about all aspects about a situation. But if we really think about it as two different lists, the things we can control and the things we can't control, and if we can focus as much attention as possible on what we can control, what we can affect change in, our stress level will go way, way down because when we feel like we're in control, when we can affect change, we're making a difference. But if we spend so much wasted energy on what we can't control, it's just going to waste that energy and it's not going to go do anything other than give us additional stress.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So, I want to talk about your book a little bit. First
Mhm.
off, just tell us the name of your book, but then give us some tidbits here of what we can expect to see and how you're helping people with what's in the book.
Sure. It's called Lighten Your Day, and Lighten is a seven-letter acronym for my research where I found that we generate most of our stress from. Because, if the listeners haven't gotten a sense of this yet, the fact is most of our stress is self-induced. We do it to ourselves.
Yes.
It's like, for example, the boss who sent me that text at 6 o'clock in the morning, I could have just put it aside. But instead, I responded and started trying to fix things. So I did it to myself,
Right.
So the thing is that the Lighten model stands for your livelihood or your career. The I stands for your imagination or your conscious mind, which is only 5% of your brain, but it's where your inner critic lies.
Okay.
The G stands for genius or your unconscious mind. And your unconscious mind is running your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's where your memories are stored, your habits are formed, your perception of the world lies, but it's where real change happens. Because if you change in your unconscious mind, that's going to change in your life overall. Then the H is for your health, which as we've discussed before, that without your health, nothing else matters really.
Yeah.
T stands for the time you have available. E stands for your environment because you got to make sure that your environment is supportive of your stress relief efforts. And the N stands for your network of relationships because the people in your life matter. And when you're stressed, you're less likely to have empathy, or to listen to them, etc. So you don't want to take the important people in your life for granted.
Awesome. So lighten, livelihood, your imagination, genius, which is your unconscious mind, your health, your time, your environment, which is certainly impacting your stress, and then your network and relationships.
Hmm. You got it.
That's awesome.
And
I
then
love it.
inside the book, each of those seven have several very quick and easy techniques that you can utilize to help you reduce your stress. And it's all about, when I was doing my research, I found that most of the books out there, what they do is it's a 200-300 page book on one technique or something in theory. And the reality is, most of us, when we are stressed, we don't have much time. We need something to try right away. And what I found is if you can find one or two techniques that help you, run with those.
Yeah.
Spend a minute or two each day doing those because the compound benefits over time will be enormous. You just got to start today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. So I'm gonna try and relate this to marketing. So there's all kinds of techniques out there for stress management. There are all kinds of marketing channels and tactics. One of the things we always talk about is you don't need to be in every marketing channel to be successful.
Uh-huh,
So don't feel like you have to do everything. And you're saying the same thing here with stress. It's like, look, you don't have to do all these different stress management tactics. You just need to find those less than a handful that work for you, that you can build a habit around. And that's going to help you get to where you need to be. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct. So and when you say that habit, as we talked about, your unconscious mind, that's where your habits are formed. And so if you make a new habit in your unconscious mind, you will see real change.
Yeah. Once it's a habit, it's not work anymore. You don't even have to think about it. You just do it.
Exactly. It's autopilot.
Yeah. Okay. So let's run through one of these stress relief techniques.
Yeah, so it's good. You mentioned about marketing, Tim. And so, marketing, we often, our stress is around maybe doing a presentation, an important presentation, or let's say having a difficult conversation with somebody. Those two are things that are often very important in the marketing realm. So one technique that I absolutely love is a technique called hakalau. And hakalau is a light meditation that comes from the Hawaiian culture. And it's really greatly suited for calming you before a perceived stressful event, like an important presentation or a difficult conversation. So what you do is go ahead and pick a spot in your office right now, something stationary, and preferably something above eye level. Nothing that's going to strain your neck, but something that's slightly above your level. And take a look at that and start focusing on it.
Okay.
And as you stare at this spot, just let your mind go loose and focus all of your attention on that spot. And notice that within a matter of moments, your vision begins to spread out and you see more in your peripheral than you do in the central part of your vision. Start paying attention to the peripheral. In fact, pay more attention to the peripheral than the central part of your vision. And stay in this state and notice that it has a calming effect on you. And now close your eyes and open your eyes, come back into the present, and notice that you're more calm, you're more grounded, and you're more aware of your surroundings and better prepared to take on that challenging event.
Damn, we need to put a disclaimer on this episode. If you're driving while listening,
don't do that. Exactly.
Yeah, pull over.
Yeah, so you definitely don't want to do it until if you're driving a car, obviously, or you're walking or something, because that's why it's a stationary spot on the wall. But you can do that anywhere. So, like, let's say you just parked your car and you're about to go into maybe a sales presentation or something like that. If you can just do that from your car right beforehand, you're just calming yourself, because we just wind ourselves up. Again, talking about that anxiety that we were talking about earlier, you wind yourself up and it's just, it's ridiculous what we do to ourselves. But this is something that helps ground us and it works like a charm.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And that was quick.
1 minute. 1 minute.
While I was staring at the light ahead of me, I was thinking about the fact that I'm doing this on live video. But it was, even though I knew in the background we're sitting here doing this interview, it was still calming. So that was awesome. I love it.
I'm glad you like it, because the thing is that it's something that especially when you say marketing, that's the first one I think about, because God knows how many presentations I made in my career.
This has been fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and really opening up about that. and giving us some great techniques, and just some things to think about. I mean, because the mind-body connection really is so strong, and if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of anybody else. We can't help anybody else. Super important. Do you have any last minute words of wisdom or thoughts you want to share with us?
Sure. Obviously, as we talked about at the beginning, be kind. Be kind to others. Be kind to yourself. That is so important. But also, you mentioned it. Listen to your mind and body about the early warning signs of stress. If you're finding that your back is hurting, your shoulders are tight, maybe you're reaching for the Excedrin bottle more often than you normally would, or you're having trouble focusing. Those things are early warnings of stress. And take note of those and do something to take care of yourself, self-care, because without your health, nothing else matters.
Yeah. Awesome. Where can people learn more about you? I would obviously, from this conversation, you have more than proved that you know what you're talking about. You've experienced it yourself. So if people are having a tough time managing their stress, they need some help. Obviously, I highly recommend you reach out to Professor Pete. Where should they go?
They should just go to petealexander.com. They'll find my blog that has over 100 different techniques that they can try. Almost all of them take 5 minutes or less to give a try to. And they can also reach out to me via the website if they'd like to have a live discussion with me.
Awesome. So petealexander.com, and that's Alexander, Alexander. So head on over to petealexander.com. Pete, thanks so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. I have learned a ton, as I normally do in these conversations. So I appreciate that. Thank you to those who are tuning in, listening, watching. If you want to gain clarity on where to focus your marketing efforts right now to get the best return, hop on over to our website at rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing.com. Click on the Get a Free Consult button. Guarantee you'll get a ton of value and walk away with some clarity on where you need to focus right now. Thank you so much. Till next time, take care.